Report to Fina!
He's going right now.
I don't want my face on TV.
I love Officer Fina. He's cool. Yeah, he's real cool.
I love Officer Fina.
Out with.
Kid's future you're ruining right there.
Which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first order of business. Chairmanship vote for the commission.
I nominate David Gagnon to continue for his remaining year as chairman of the police commission.
You in?
I don't have any nominations, and the nominations don't require a second.
No, I'm just asking if you want a nomination.
No, I don't have any nominations.
Accepted.
I'll accept. All right, public input.
David Pearl, 79 Main Street. I have requested the policies and procedures for the commission. I have not received anything, so I was a little confused about how we're going to handle answering questions after the last meeting, where some questions were answered and some weren't. So I'm going to pose the questions and hope that we can get an answer to them. Did the police commission discuss the letters that were sent to the town council dated May 27, 2009 and June 2, 2009 concerning police commission candidates? Did they discuss those at the May 19th police commission in non-public session? That would have been the last meeting that you had before the date of those letters.
You can submit your questions, sir. We'll get back to you. We don't have the answers off the top of our head.
Well, it was stated by the chief in the last meeting that you did discuss those letters. Were they discussed in non-public session? You don't recall?
I don't recall.
Does anybody recall? No answer.
I don't recall.
Would they have been discussed outside of the meeting?
No.
No. Okay. So my question is, if you discussed them in non-public session, why were there two letters? And why were the letters dated the 27th and the 2nd instead of creating one letter? And they concerned the same thing.
I think my recollection is Stephen LaRue filed quite a bit, probably on the last day.
Yes, as a matter of fact, Mr. LaRue's application came in on the 27th. Therefore, I don't see any way that you could have discussed it in non-public session on the 19th. You had no scheduled meeting after the 19th. So it appears as though that at least Mr. LaRue's letter concerning Mr. LaRue was discussed outside of this meeting.
I don't remember discussing it.
So you have no answer for that?
Not at this point.
You didn't get together and discuss that letter outside of the meeting? And how did it happen?
No. I don't recall. Could you move on, please? I mean, you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, I have 5 minutes, exactly, and I'd like an answer.
Well, we'll get back to you.
What does that mean? You're going to get back to me for the next meeting? I've had other things that you were going to get back to me on it. I've never heard a word. Okay, we're going to move on then. At the June Police Commission meeting, I asked the chief if he accepted anonymous complaints against police officers, and he stated, yes, we do. I then asked you why you will not accept an anonymous complaint that was presented to you at the previous meeting, against the chief, who is a police officer.
We don't accept unanimous, anonymous complaints, whether the department does. You want to
Well,
clarify?
there has to be, you have to specify a specific issue. So somebody comes in and says, I want to make a complaint against Officer so-and-so. You have to have specifics, what, date and time, what is being alleged to have occurred. You can't just come in and make general statements, I want to make a complaint against so-and-so because I don't like them. That type of complaint,
And you feel there was no specifics in that complaint that was against you?
they'll have to answer that.
Well, they're saying that they're not going to accept the complaint, but you say you will accept complaints against officers.
Right, but I'm not going to discuss a complaint about me.
Well, then
That's
wouldn't
up
that
to
go
them.
back to them?
Absolutely.
And then will you accept it?
We will not.
So you'll accept complaints against any officer except the chief?
I will not accept a complaint against an officer. It doesn't come to me.
So the chief will accept a complaint against any officer except himself?
If there's specifics in the complaint, that complaint do not have specific grounds.
So should it have had specifics in it, you would accept it?
Well, the commission would then have to decide what they want to do with it.
They're telling me they don't accept anonymous complaints.
Well, I wouldn't take a complaint on myself no matter what. It would have to go to them. That's up to them to deal with their legal counsel and do whatever they feel is correct.
Okay, let's move on. 3 times I've approached this commission and I've asked that you amend the meeting, the minutes of the March 17th minutes. We've provided you audio recordings, dictated verbatim minutes. We've discussed it with you. I've looked at your minutes, and you've not amended the minutes to correctly reflect the record. Is there a reason for that?
Do you have anything?
If you want to move on, because your time is going, I'll find you the answer.
We have also never got an answer about why at the November 18th, 2008 meeting that Captain Cecilio's remarks were excluded from the minutes. He made a presentation about the school reports at that time. He is the captain, and I would suspect that they should be in the minutes. Yet he's mentioned only in attendance, but not mentioned as saying anything in that meeting.
Do we have an answer for that?
Wouldn't you consider that that's something that should be in the minutes?
It should have been.
It was an error. It was an error that we left out an entire presentation by the captain concerning school reports, which were the hot button issue at that time. Okay,
That's your time.
thank you.
I have your answer, Mr. Furlong. I'm going to refer you to Attorney Hallquist, who's a staff attorney for the New Hampshire Local Government Legal Center. The question posed to her is, if a citizen submits a prepared statement to the board and demands that it be included as part of the minutes, must it be included? Answer, no. The board prepares their minutes and cannot be forced to include statements or documents presented by members of the public.
Mr. White, if I may, I was not trying to get a statement put into the record. This has to do with the length of that meeting, which your minutes state was 2 minutes long. We provided you your own audio tape, which is 5 minutes and 38 seconds long. Now, that was significant because of the start time of that meeting. So therefore, that's a fact of your own recording. That was not my statement.
You know, if I remember right, I think mine watched at 5:30, and you say it's 5:28, so.
I'm not
let's leave
arguing
it
the, I'm not arguing the time, sir. I'm saying your minutes say that that meeting was conducted and lasted 2 minutes. It did not. That's an error, and it should be corrected in the minutes.
there. So noted.
Thank you.
Corrected. Anyone else?
Good. Dana Argo, 11 Orchard Drive. Can I direct my question to the chief?
Sure.
Chief, just looking for a little clarification. I was reading, and this is from a newspaper article, so I want to make sure it's correct, that our recent article about the SRO. You stated that, at least according to the article, that that you wanted the school board to stay out of the daily operations of the superintendent. That's not verbatim, but just wanted to make sure that was a correct statement, and if you had any, if you had any specifics on it. We're in a bit of a respite now, so I wanted to bring it back to the board.
Right. That is true. I think if you go back to dealings with the SRO program last fall, I've had good relations with the superintendent since he's been here. We had issues with our staffing internally. We also had some problems on both sides of the house as far as the school resource officer program. I was working with the superintendent, and he was working with me, and he was well aware of the change that may come about on the SRO's hours based on our staffing issues here. I told him he could inform the school board or not of the details of that in a non-public if he wished, so you would understand. I don't know if he did or not. Ultimately, because of staffing issues, we did cut back the SRO's hours. We had, I believe, 3 officers that were, I think one was on probation, so was not able to work the road. There were 2 injured, so we were down 3 people in patrol. So we cut the hours back from 8 hours a day to 2 hours a day. He knew that was going to happen, and he had been asked to let you people know that. So when that happened, obviously, if we all remember, the next thing was Moore's letter, which was a fine letter. However, one of the things talking to the SRO was he mentioned at one point to a staff member that he was Mrs. Wood, who was on the school board at the time, was calling him almost every day, and that he was giving her information about things that were going on in the school. And I think that's, you have change of command. That's why the superintendent should be dealing with that stuff. The school board member should not be getting involved in those day-to-day issues. Just as this board doesn't get involved in day-to-day issues of the police department, or the council doesn't get involved in day-to-day issues of the other town departments. So the request basically would be is that if issues pop up for the school board, is to go back through your superintendent on questions, concerns, problems, and at least let your superintendent deal with it so that we're dealing at the level we're supposed to.
So that statement was strictly on the SRO issue?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Montana. I live on 19 Fair Street.
Hi, my name is Jessica. We're from David R. Calling Middle School, and Officer Dina is our school police officer. And I would just like to say that he really has made an impact on our school, and he's a pretty important guy there, and he's really means a lot.
And like every day we came in, it was like if we didn't have a smile, he always made it like a good day. And we always had a very good time with Officer Dina. Like I know that a couple kids out there, they went on the lecture with him, and they came back saying what a good time they had, and like how much fun they had with him because he just made it like the best trip. Like, and compared to the other trips, they said how much fun, and even our French teacher, Madame, she mentioned him specifically saying how much more fun, like fun part he was in the trip, and how much fun and how he made the kids laugh. And I know we have like 2 kids out here that he went with on the trip, and they were talking about how fun it was, and they're wearing the shirts today, and like he means a lot to us.
And there's no fear to talk to him about any problems in our school. He's made it such a safer place, and I really believe that he should stay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. Hello, my name is Maura Willett, 3 Summerfair Street. I would like to welcome Joanne McHugh as our newest police commissioner and thank the 6 members of the town council that supported her in this position. She will be a welcome change. I'm speaking tonight to ask the police commission to reconsider the decision made by Chief Agrafiotis to replace Officer Dupina as the school resource officer. Since its inception 4 years ago, the SRO program in Hooksett has never been able to flourish and succeed like it should. That is until now. During the tenure of our first SRO, Chief Agraffiotis suspended the program on 4 separate occasions due to, in his own words, personnel issues. In April of 2008, Officer Jay Defina took over the SRO position. Knowing Jay personally, I couldn't have been more pleased. Jay has an infectious, caring personality, which I felt would be ideal for someone working with our students. And I knew the children would warm up to him, and they certainly did. He was able to develop a rapport with them, and as a result, he earned their trust. Kids don't care about the politics of a situation. They just recognize when someone truly cares about them. They know almost instinctively when an adult has their best interest at heart, and that no matter what happens, they know they can always go to that person in time of need. This type of relationship doesn't happen overnight. It takes the repeated efforts of the adult to foster and grow. This is one reason why the SRO program has been so successful across the country, so much so that it is the fastest growing segment in law enforcement. The bridge that is created between law enforcement and the school community is invaluable. It really is the type of program where benefits are seen and unseen. Sometimes we have no way of measuring how much good has come out of it or how much bad has been averted by having it in place. We've all watched as the chief threatened to diminish the SRO program due to budget issues, manpower issues, the debate over exactly what problems were occurring in our schools, and finally the second half of the school year, when Officer Defina could seem to do nothing right in the eyes of the police chief. All the while excelling as the SRO in spite of the efforts of his superiors. It took a lot of courage for Officer Defina to request public grievance hearings. He knew full well that this would be the opportunity for the public to see firsthand what life is like for a Hooksett police officer. He also knew what the ramifications of that could be. It takes an awful lot of courage to do what he did, and rest assured, it came with a price. A price to Officer Defina professionally and personally. Imagine a patrol meeting where the officers are told, as long as you stay away from the SRO and the K-9 officer, you'll be fine. A price where Officer Defina was under daily, constant scrutiny for every move he made. A price which certainly resembles a paper trail. Officer Defina was ordered to write a job description this year, which he did. His description captured the essence of the position and how it is so different at each school. It was clear that he has a thorough understanding of what an SRO should and can be. Amazingly enough, he was also chastised for this. Upon reading his job description, his supervisor wrote that Jake's passion for the program has clouded his judgment. Think about this for a minute. His passion for the program has clouded his judgment. I see it very differently. I want someone who is passionate about what they do. In my eyes, that is not a negative, that is a positive. Officer Defina is an asset. When the chief decided to replace Officer Defina as the SRO, he forgot one thing, his obligation to this town and its most precious resource, our children. The National Association of School Resource Officers highly recommends consistency in its program. It states that the SRO program offers unique circumstances under which routine and periodic rotations are discouraged, and consistency is recommended as a best practice. The establishment of meaningful relationships is a process, not an event. Relationships are built over a period of time, not overnight. Consistency and stability in SRO assignments must exist in order to nurture relationships and to prevent disruptions in meaningful working relationships. It is my hope that you will recognize the incredible work of Officer Defina and reinstate him to the position that he has described as the most important thing he has done in his 10 years in law enforcement. This community couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And other residents. Well, that almost sounded like a eulogy and a memorial, and that's what these citizens are trying to prevent. I want to remind Commissioner Gagnon and the commissioners on April 21st meeting that Commissioner Gagnon concluded in his speech about the SRO program, but Officer Defina standing right here, that the SRO program is not about Jay's program, and it's not about the police department's program. Your comments, sir, Mr. Gagnon, were the SRO program belongs to the kids. Well, the kids want Officer Defina retained as their SRO. So therefore, I would recommend that the Commission retain Officer Defina as their SRO. Secondly, I want to ask for clarification, I guess, on Commissioner Roy as to what the basis of any legal basis of what was about submitting documents. As far as I know, the Commissioner, the Chief, uses the book called Knowing Your Territory, which he's spoken about earlier, and if that's a legal opinion or if that's stated in the RSAs as to how to submit documents, and if that's a current change of policy from previous meetings.
I believe it's that Attorney Hallquist's opinion.
Well, opinions are, I have an opinion too. And citizens have opinions.
Right.
I also want to address the meetings of the previous meetings in which in previous months I have addressed issues about how to correct the minutes and submitting verbatim minutes to the commission, which have not been adopted as of yet. And each month, as I submit them, the commission states, we will take them under advisement and consideration. At the last meeting, I asked what take under advisement meant and what the next step is for a commission to do to take them under advisement and whether I should be advised as a result of that. I want to know now if they have finally been advised enough about the submission of those minutes in the past previous month's minutes and consider my citizen request to allow the changes of verbatim minutes to take place. And again, last month, I believe I recommended that you remove the question, and you guys didn't know what I was talking about. Also, I submitted minutes, handed minutes to the office here regarding another public input statement that I made on 6/16, and it was a public input statement that I read a document which I presented to the department the following morning, which was stamped at the office. I have another copy of it that was stamped on June 17th. Those minutes currently, as they were posted for this month, missed a lot of very important points. And I don't want to fault Francine because I don't know who's at fault with this. And as to your point about the opinions, yes, I suppose you can put any opinion you want. But certainly the tone of the message should be there. I've highlighted everything that was missing from those minutes. And so I'm going to read those highlights for the record. If you could please post them. This is what was missing from my statements. There's an old saying, when the facts support your opinion, you pound the facts. When others' opinions don't support the facts, you pound the table. And the noise is deafening. I skipped a bunch of part what you had there. To deflect the argument away from the reality that they can't possibly say anything else to dispute the truth and support their case. They have been involved in town for decades, simply due to loyalties to them, yet not based on facts or evidence to support their loyalties, and just want the detractors to shut up and go away. Get rid of that blog, is what they say. Yet times change and people's relationships change, and we must change with it. To give this historical perspective, this is where you were rolling your eyes, sir, when I started this. To give you a historical perspective and to extrapolate on this notion, short-sighted people in this town would have criticized Thomas Jefferson for writing the Declaration of Independence and the start of the American Revolution itself. Criticized Martin Luther King Jr. for his I Have a Dream speech. Criticized the actions taken at the Boston Tea Party. Criticized Ronald Reagan for demanding to tear down the Berlin Wall. And criticized Abraham Lincoln for his Emancipation Proclamation for freeing the slaves. Those great American icons literally died for their opinions and beliefs, but changed the world because of what they believed in. The naysayers would have said, shut up and go away. We like it the way it is. They don't want to hear, yes, we can. For them, it's, no, we mustn't. We must follow in those footsteps and make this town a better place to live. Nothing moves forward in a positive way if time is spent criticizing the messenger. And that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth, quoted by New Hampshire's own Daniel Webster from Franklin, used by Abraham Lincoln in his Gettysburg Address. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Todd Lazat. This is my third year as a Hooksett resident, and actually coming up with my third year as a Hooksett resident. The last 10 months have been, I guess my time in Hooksett has been interesting and actually enjoyable. I like the town. I like the fact that it's a quiet town. I've had many occasions to interact with the police force, maybe not on the command level. I've had a few discussions with Lieutenant Klein, but the last 10 months have, to me, there's been a realization that there are systemic problems. And I don't know if as a community we're not willing to face it or not, but when I went through these hearings with Officer Defina and so forth, it kind of brought back some experiences I've had in the past as a manager and working in different applications and in government jobs where you see a pattern, and these patterns are retaliatory, and sometimes they're not with, I guess, forethought. Sometimes they just come about based on mental anguish and systems that are just broken. A good example is that sometimes people, you know, if they're put into a position in which they fear their job, they lash out because of their fear. Sometimes people that feel that they're incompetent lash out people to show that, well, I'm not the only one who's incompetent. And that is what I'm concerned about with what's been going on. One of the things that, luckily enough in my career, that the way we've been judged about competency and stuff of that nature is through, you know, exams and stuff of that nature. Performance on the job is, and especially I guess from when I've been reading some of the procedures and stuff of that nature in the AOM, what I find is a lot of the procedures and stuff of that nature is based on saying that you can define it as based on professional, you know, a professional assessment. And the question is that when I saw these hearings and we found that Officer Defina was being reprimanded for things as a post-it notes, I started saying, well, wait a minute, there must be a breakdown in either communication or a breakdown in organization. You know, last week, I think what happened was that I looked at this SRO program early in the year, and I understand that there was some justifications made and there was some issues in regards to information. And then it seemed to settle itself, like there was a little bit of a calm. Only now, this last week, I was shown that, you know, that there's, you know, a failure here to recognize the value of people, the value of these citizens, or the value of this community. And when I say we should look at ourselves, the question that comes is, in this police department, are there the best practices in place? Is there really systems that protect these officers? Are there really systems that, say when a new officer comes in, that they're fully trained in regard to how to carry out discipline? Is there, you know, a discipline matrix, or is there a set of standards so which, you know, stops the possibility that this type of discipline is, you know, arbitrarily applied or inconsistent? And are there systems in place which allow us to support these officers? I mean, I have yet to ever been, I mean, there's competence and incompetence in organizations, and they're usually defined by the fact that when you hire somebody, they're incompetent to begin with, and it's obvious. It's a flat line. Accelerated incompetence, when there's a term of competency, is an indication that there's other issues at play, not the competency of that person. It's usually a failure in leadership. I would just like to say that I've had a few interactions with Officer Defina at the schools. I see the interaction. I see the consistency from school to school. I've volunteered at Underhill and seen him, at Memorial, seen him there, seen him at Colley, and stuff like that. What I can say is this, is that I think you got a good asset there. I think we should step back, reassess the situation. And also I think we need to really look at the systems in place at this police department. I almost feel like ultimately that this police department is unsustainable. That you're just bleeding. You're bleeding officers. Everyone wants to say we're bleeding bad people, the bad apples. But maybe we're bleeding the good people. Maybe the systems aren't in place to support these people. And maybe that's what we need to be looking at. I'm here in support of the SRO program. I'm here in support of Jay DeFina. Not that I know him well. He seems to be a good man. I mean, and the fact is that, you know, I think he has a distinguished background. I don't think he has anything that's over the top. And I think he should be given the chance to continue this program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Minutes of the last meeting, public, June 16th.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Point of order. Point of order.
Yes.
I just have a couple of questions, if you don't mind, with regard to these minutes. I know the way they approach them are a little bit different from what I'm used to. And I wasn't here, so I'm just basing my fact on, where is it? For that Turner Group analysis of the building.
Yes.
On page 5, is that supposed to be an RFP, or what's an RFQ? What's the difference between an, I know what an RFP is. I thought that's what they were looking for. What's an RFQ?
Quote.
Quote. Request for a quote and not, okay. Not a request for a proposal?
No, I guess it's a request for a quote.
Okay.
Same difference, I think.
It's the same difference, okay. And mind you, I wasn't here, so. On page 4, with regard to the Verizon Tower repeater, the second sentence that says there was one issue with the car, but the portable was loud and clear. I guess I don't understand, and perhaps you could explain it to me.
The car radio wasn't working, but using the portable outside the vehicle, they could hear them loud and clear.
Okay, so.
Am I correct?
As far as I know.
Yeah, that's what I believed it to be.
Okay, on page 7, I believe it's the 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4th paragraph down, is it he or she? Is it supposed to be she?
She is Mrs. Willett.
So it's she? I guess that's all I had, and I would have to abstain because I wasn't here, so I was just trying to get a sense of what I read.
Noted, please.
Pass it down.
Nothing on public, you don't need that. I mean, the public, you don't need those.
Point of order. Point of order, sir.
Yes.
Mark Neva, 42 Main Street again. Are citizens allowed to make adjustments to the minutes if they spoke those minutes? Is it only the members of the commission who can change their statements? And if any public input is in there and that is not correct, is a citizen allowed to correct the minutes prior to you approving it? Point of order. Thank you.
No, I believe if you look at your agenda for this evening, we are discussing it under item F, where it says citizen document submittal. I don't know if you have that.
Certainly, but you're about to approve the minutes, and I want to make sure that if a citizen had correction of the minutes, as I do in town council meetings and other meetings, citizens are allowed in other council meetings and whatnot to make suggestions to correct the minutes if they are not accurate, pending the approval of the council, of course. I just wanted to find out, point of order, if that is allowable here. Thank you.
I think you would have to when you discuss it.
Yeah, discuss it then.
Can I I think when we get to that point, that we're going to be discussing the citizen document submittal, that we're certainly going to discuss how we're going to go about it. My history is with regard to minutes, that it's the board that corrects them. If people find errors, I would think that it would be a good idea to alert somebody, you know, beforehand. The other thing is, I know you were speaking before about statements that were made that were verbatim. I don't know how, you know, what this board is going to decide with regard to that. Or perhaps, and probably it's something we can check on, whether or not it can be just a simple attachment to the minutes. And
With all due respect, Commissioner, that we've tried that for months, and it has not been allowed. So I'm asking you, prior to your...
It's just a suggestion.
Sure, but I'm asking you, prior to the actual approval of the minutes, I know you're going to talk about it in new business or whatever, but if you're going to approve the minutes in the next 2 minutes or so, I want to know as a point of order, is there a law or regulation of some sort that allows citizens to submit corrections to the minutes if they spoke those minutes during that meeting? Thank you.
I don't believe there's a law or regulation. It's up to the board.
We move that issue up now and discuss it now if you want.
Okay.
If that,
Yeah, we can take it out of order.
It's an
The
issue.
board's, get the board's number.
We're going to move to new business F.
Thank you.
Okay with that?
I don't have a problem.
You're all set?
I'm also-
All right. Go ahead. Who's...
Well, actually, I wrote you a letter addressing exactly what you've been talking about and asking the commission to, at this meeting, discuss what your policy is going to be on receiving documents from the public and on the exact question that was just asked as far as verbatim minutes and or how you would interact as Joanne just said about the potential changes. I wrote you the letter I talked about in the letter, the legal opinion from Attorney Kimberly Calquist of the Local Government Center, which is attached for you to read. And at the request of the chairman, I received some, talked to our legal counsel and gave the opinion of that. So with that, commissioners, you have that, those legal opinions, and I think it's up to the commission to decide with those legal opinions and other issues and past experiences you've all had on different boards you've been on, how you want to handle that for the future. So it's a very valid question Mr. Neville has, and that's why I had looked into that and
Thank you, sir.
this memo.
Reading her opinion here, she said, the commission has no legal obligation except written statements or documents. That's not what we're discussing, right?
Well, yeah.
It was a two-part answer, wasn't it, Chief?
You had one was an article from the attorney from the LGC, and then your own legal counsel was asked 2 questions and gave her opinion on 2 separate questions to help you then decide with that guidance from the 2 attorneys which way you as a board want to function. It's still obviously up to you.
I have no problem with accepting something that is a totally erroneous in error. And I guess that's what Joanne just reiterated a few minutes ago.
Surely whatever policy the people want to set. I just got you the background of, but it's really up to you. It's your meeting, how you want to run it, what you want how you want to handle it.
She writes that we have no legal obligation except written statements.
That's correct, but what is your pleasure?
Well, I guess you can decide it case by case.
No, you can't. You set up, you're going to have to set up,
Right, you put yourself at risk if
Yeah.
you're going to go case by case.
you can't do that. It has to be one way or the other.
I've had several experiences. I had an experience way back when where there was a mistake in the minutes, and it was a pretty egregious mistake, and nobody picked up on it. And I picked up on it after the fact, and I did go forward to the board and ask them to correct the minutes, and it was duly noted. But I have also been in a position where different members of the community have come in and made statements, and after the fact, they were somewhat concerned over the fact that their statements were not included in the minutes. And I've seen, like I said, and that's where I was basing my comments on the fact that I don't think that it would be a problem to attach those minutes, those comments, to the minutes. Probably not embody them into the minutes themselves, because the minutes themselves, depending on how you go about it, if you're taking minutes verbatim and you're taking them from your tape and you're doing them verbatim, you're going to have to include them in. But if you're summarizing, you don't necessarily, but you still have the opportunity, I believe, to attach a statement that was made. Because what you could be doing in the minutes is capturing the basis of the statement that was made by the public that came forward to make that statement. But you could also attach it. I don't know how people feel about that.
I agree. Going forward, we can put it as an attachment, because we're not going to take verbatim
Because you're not taking verbatim from the tape?
No.
No. We follow the LDC guidelines on it.
Because there are some boards that take verbatim minutes.
Yes, there are.
You know.
So I agree we should attach going forward.
So we're just going to take somebody's submission and flip it to our minutes
As a
after they're
statement,
approved.
correct.
I don't have a problem with that.
Dave, do you need to make a motion to that extent?
Well, yeah, I'll get there in a minute, Paul.
Okay.
Anybody, do you have any other comments?
Well, the only other issue I believe that was brought up, it had to do with the correction. Supposing someone from the public finds an error that was not picked up by the board, and it's brought to the attention of this board, the next time the board meets, they could duly note in the minutes that correction.
Absolutely.
Doesn't that submission that you're talking about do that?
No,
No,
she's talking about an error.
An error that was made.
And that
I
would
don't know
be-
how people feel about that.
That would be the way to do it, would be
To amend your minutes.
at the next meeting, correct?
Right.
To correct them when you're
And
reviewing.
it allows the public, if they find things that, you know.
Great.
That's fine. Motion on that one, somebody?
I'll let you make the motion. She's,
I'll make the motion, first of all, that for statements or that have been submitted to the commission, that they be allowed to be attached to the minutes that they refer to, and that if the public or whoever has corrections that have been an oversight of the commission, that they be allowed to bring those corrections forward.
To be approved by the commission.
To be approved by the commission.
Okay.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we go back. Going back, did we approve the public minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Non-public minutes of Tuesday, June 16th.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain, because I was not here with regard to that. Could I make a suggestion with regard to these? That a lot of different boards and committees use different colored paper
I agree with that.
to signal out that they
Whatever makes it easier for you to look at this stuff.
The whole,
Just for the non-public minutes, okay.
Oh, it's easy, yeah, good point. Okay, moving on, sorry. Town budget report.
Actually, because the end of June was the end of the budget year, we don't have a final report from the town, and also we're only about 2 weeks or so into the 3 weeks this year. We don't have a report yet from the town. What we did provide you was a preliminary from Francine of the end of last year, which obviously we have to wait to get the final from the town. But the preliminary for last year shows that as of the end of the year, which obviously was 100%, that the PD had expended 90.81% and would therefore be returning $294,724 to the town hall.
That is after the encumbrances?
Yes. Okay. Yes, the encumbrances you voted on were part of this. Okay. So again, that's Francine's and our preliminary. Obviously, we need to wait a little bit longer for the towns.
So you're not ready to expand on what those lines, that represents what lines?
I mean, is what was spent for each line?
No, not what we spent. This 290, 784, are they from salary lines? Are they from?
They're from a number of lines. If you look at the, and I know it's short notice to give you that, but if you look at, that form right there.
Oh,
if you
okay.
look at the second to last column on the right,
Right.
any amount which is parentheses is under expended, so you can see the lines that are under
okay,
expended.
I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, so if you look down that, you see more than half of the lines, give or take, are under expended by the amount within the brackets. And then the other lines that have no brackets would have been over expended by that amount. Positive and negatives come up to the 294,724 at the bottom, and that translates into the 90.81%. And obviously for budget planning for next year, which will be starting obviously in a few months, that's one of the things we go back and look at is not only the proposal, but how the spending compared to last year's request and the new proposal going forward, and ups and downs that may be needed depending on what's happening.
It would be helpful if you had some kind of a summary, as to, that's what I was looking for, and that would help probably when we get to the budget process, of why these lines still have remaining.
Correct.
Okay.
You want to do that in the budget process?
Yeah, right. That way there, it could certainly help us.
Okay. As they save, we always have the commissioners save.
Right, that's a good idea.
For that time, so you have what was proposed, or you have what was proposed last year for the numbers. We can get you a copy because you knew of what was proposed for the total budget package, like you saw in the budget committee.
Right.
And you'll have this, and then you will have the new budget proposal package, so you can see that history. And then I think that might be the best time to then go forward, and because then you're going through every line item and what's being requested compared to what was requested the year before, and why a line may or may not be up or down, and why it may or may not need to be adjusted.
Right.
If that's okay.
Right. I do like the fact that it's with the monthly expenses in it.
Right. And you'll get that every month. What you'll get as a commissioner every month is you'll get from the town what their numbers are, and then Francine puts her numbers together if there are any discrepancies. Francine talks to finance, and many times you'll find a minor issue somewhere.
Okay.
Steve, the final report will have the total breakdown anyway. The final annual report, fiscal report, has the breakdown by every single line item.
Right. Yeah. What you get from us is basically a duplication, if you will, but we look at it on our own, so that you have us and finance looking at the same numbers to make sure that the same bills were paid, that each line is where it should be. And that's why when you have a minor discrepancy, sometimes something is put under the wrong line item or whatever during billing or during our coding or whatever, and that's how we pick that up. So every month you'll be getting two of those. You'll be getting ours and the town's.
Now, for these expenditures, will you indulge me? I'm sorry.
Of course.
You just send, you look at the manifest of these expenditures and send them on to be signed by the town, so.
No, we sign them here.
Oh, you sign them
Right,
here?
we sign the bills here.
You sign them?
Yes. Yes, all the bills are reviewed and signed here. Copies are kept here, and that's how we make this up, and then it goes up to the town.
Okay, and then when the checks go out, they're signed?
Yes, signed by them up there.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Frank, you're always pretty much in agreement with her, right, Francie, with finance? So there should be no surprises next month.
Right.
Yeah, we very rarely, and usually if there are, Francine knows before a meeting, so she would call and say, well, you said we were expended $200 in that line, and we say $250, and between us and finance, we figure out where the glitch is, because we send them the exact documentation, so everybody has the same documentation. So usually it's a coding issue, computer-wise, it's put on the wrong line or something.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Old business?
Let's see. Old business, the first thing I had on the agenda, was the SRO process or the program. We did have yesterday 3 of our staff members, Captain Cilio, Lieutenant Klein, and Sergeant Blanchett, met with Superintendent and Principal Estes, I believe. Discussed what Moore had talked about, which was the job description and some other issues that had been sent, I believe, to the school board also. You guys should have gotten that from the superintendent. It was never sent?
No.
Okay, remember when we had the meeting and I gave the copies?
Yes.
So that was never sent. Okay, well, at the meeting that Henry Moore, myself, and the superintendent had, we had that. You know, we tried to get all the information together to move forward. And remember the discussion we had here was that the superintendent would hopefully get that to the school board so that as we move forward, because the program's a living program, there's always going to be changes, and as the town changes, updates to that. So that was supposed to go to the school board, so the school board would see what we saw and what us and the superintendent would be talking about. So
if I could speak to that, we did receive that. It was given to Phil, and both Phil and myself read it. There were memos attached to it from, I believe, Troy Klein and Paul Cecilio, kind of giving an overview of how they felt Jay's job description was, and both Phil and myself felt it was inappropriate to pass it on and did not.
well,
Why didn't somebody bring it back? Thought it was inappropriate. So it could be fixed or at least discussed. I mean, I wasn't part of this, so I don't have a clue. I guess it's...
You might want to get a copy for yourself and from the chief and read it for yourself.
I'm not debating that you're correct, but
No,
I guess if we would have brought it
saying
back, or at least to the group that sat through it, maybe you could have ironed it out and it could be done. I would like a copy of that.
you have a copy, but we can...
I do.
Yeah.
The job description itself we felt was right on, but beyond that, we didn't think it was appropriate.
Okay.
The other memos that were attached.
Who were you with, Dr. Littlefield?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he's not forwarding anything to us, so you said you're not going to move anything on?
There was memos attached, I believe, is what
Right,
you felt were
that's
inappropriate.
Right,
Why did we send
exactly.
something with memos attached
That was kind of our question.
instead of just a...
Well, we sent the job description, but there was also the memos were comments from the staff about how they felt the program, their input, and I thought it was appropriate that you people and the school board see that, because there may be ideas or issues in there that you'd want to know, so you'd want to know the whole package of what we were looking at and what we would be discussing with the superintendent. If you remember, the discussion was that we were going to meet with the superintendent was going to get that information to you guys, you would know what we were all looking at, and then as we went forward, which is the meeting that occurred yesterday with the superintendent, those documents would be the starting point for tweaking the program. But we wanted, remember the discussion was to make sure that the school board, like the commission, was in the loop of what documents were in place then, and what changes people were talking about may or may not be beneficial. But if you remember, the issue was just because they were writing doesn't mean it was going to happen. The discussion was then going to go further about taking all those ideas, pros, cons, good points, bad points, ironing them out for a modified or next phase document, if you will.
I think the problem was the memos really weren't discussing the job description, and what they were discussing were inappropriate to pass on, and that's why we didn't.
Well, it was never brought back to my attention, so if I can, so the rest of the school board never got that job description.
That's absolutely correct.
Or any of that. And I think, you know, if I can, is I thought that the staff's comments about the program were important to at least hear, whether you like the verbiage or not, to at least hear how, not only what the SRO saw, what the other people saw, but what the staff saw as far as how the program was working, because we're operating in, you know, in different disciplines. So that's why that was included. And I think that was why we wanted the school board to see it too, so the school board would see what the superintendent was seeing. You know, in case any of the members of the school board had a question of the superintendent, just like the commission saw it, if they had a question of me. So I would hope if with Dana on the board, if what we're working on now, and what I was getting at is the meeting that was held yesterday with the superintendent was to take that paperwork or those documents and move forward to tweaking the program and tweaking the job description. So I don't know what point that will get to the school board. I guess it's up to the school board if you, I mean, our discussion months ago when you were on the school board, Maura, was for the school board to be very early on in the process aware of what was in place and what changes may occur, because we also wanted to see if you had any input. So right now, the current school board members are stuck because you don't know what existed, and now there's already been one meeting to potentially move forward. So I guess I would ask Dana then, I don't think any of the school board members here, to go back and with the superintendent or more somebody and find out how the school board is going to, if at whatever point, get involved, or if it's your choice, then wait till we work something out. But we thought that it was because of all the issues and because it was a maturing program, everybody should know about it.
I have a question, but you do first. So.
Is there, I'm not going to say a national organization or someone that you get your guidelines from with regard to...
General guidelines, yes.
Okay, because I remember years ago, and I believe it was when you first came into the community, you had approached me as a school board member about the program that they had in Raymond.
Correct.
Okay, and I just wondered whether or not there are some basic guidelines that they use throughout the country with regard to SRO, and they go into a number of issues that we're talking about.
Yes, there are some basic guidelines, right? There are some basic guidelines, and that's what you and I had discussed years ago. I think one of the primary issues that we've been dealing with and was discussed again yesterday is there is an RSA, the Safe Schools Act. There is also a Department of Education administrative rule which says how school districts have to follow the Safe Schools Act.
Right.
One of the issues, and I think you and I talked about it a number of years ago, was that there were some problems with getting the school to report as they were required by law and by the Department of Ed administrative rule. That was one of the reasons for putting an SRO in, was hopefully that would get us closer to the school, and those reporting problems may hopefully go away so that we could deal with the problems that came up and not even dealing, you know, we get called about a problem, we don't even know about a problem because the reporting wasn't done properly. That continued to be an issue through last school year, the reporting part of it on the school's end, and that's one of the things that the staff discussed with the superintendent yesterday. As a matter of fact, I think August 24th. August 24th, the staff will be doing a training with, if everybody's there, superintendent, all the principals and vice principals on the SRO program, but the main thing is the basic law. The school has to follow the state law.
Right.
And all our program does, or the minimum our program does, is mirror the state law.
Right.
And then from there, what we're working on, and that's what the documents you had and that the school board may or may not want to have input in, is in addition to that, what do you want to, or what does the school want to see the SRO involved in? Obviously, there's only so much time, but what other areas? For example, a number of years ago, the school informed me that they did not want to do the DARE or the GRADE program because they had their own health program they were doing. So the curriculum that we had taught in this DARE and the GRADE was going to be incorporated, or some portions were going to be incorporated in that. So again, goes back to the question of, after doing the basics, what does the school want to see? What do the principals and the superintendent, really, the people, you know, boots on the ground type of thing, see as a need, a concern, a traffic issue, safety issues, discipline issues? What is it? But the primary issue, though, is the school has to follow the state law.
Right, but I think a lot of times the people are not aware of what constitutes something that needs to be reported, and I'm glad to hear that you're saying that you're going to be involved in part of, you know, when they do that training, because like I say, sometimes people are not aware of what constitutes, you know, an incident. With regard to the DARE program, I think there was some information, I don't recall where it came from, whether or not it was an educator or whatever, with regard to the DARE program, that there were some opinions that had changed, not necessarily locally, but some opinions that had changed nationally about the effectiveness of the DARE program. And I think that's where that came from.
That kind of all came together, and
right.
There was a staffing issue on our end. There was changes in the philosophy. The school was moving toward its own program. But if I can just back up on something, we have a signed memorandum of understanding with the school district. We sign it, the superintendent signs it. We've been doing that for years, and that lays out the RSA. So if there were people in leadership positions in the schools that were not aware of the reporting points, then the information was then not getting from the SAU to the schools.
Right.
I'm not saying that happened, but to your point, that if people didn't know, there is also a Department of Ed administrative rule, so I think that's up to the schools to do the training with their people on at least their own administrative rules from the state.
Right.
You know, and us coming in and talking about the law is supplementing that, but I don't think that's a reason for them to say, well, we don't know about the law, we're just not going to follow it.
Right. Well, I'm not going to say that, you know, I'm not going to make any statements with regard to something like that. I think it's a good thing that you work together, and that if there are rules that need to be followed, that the other makes the other one aware of it, and that you work together, and that's a sure sign that you're headed in the right direction if they're going to have a workshop that's going to be dealing with.
Well, that was one of the things that came up, because last year, and even in prior years, I know Cap Cecilio, even in his prior assignment, had dealt with the school a number of years about getting the reporting done right, and the school was not.
Him and I had a conversation one day.
So, and I mean, and you and I have talked about it.
Okay.
But that said, that meeting will occur in August. Dana, if you could maybe, I don't know what you want to do with that, at what level or what point the school wants to get, the board wants to get involved or not. It's totally up to you guys, but that's where we're at. We're meeting, our people met with the superintendent yesterday, and we'll have that training on that date. I don't know when a job description will be coming out. I'm leaving that to people that are actually generating that, the people that are working with that, but that's where we stand on that part of that program. As far as the SRO assignment, I appreciate the comments that everybody has made here.
Can I just,
yep.
I'm still going on this whole one. If nothing was forwarded, what transpired yesterday?
We met with them just briefly to say, we want to move forward. This is the law. We gave a copy of the SRO policy, the procedure that we follow, because they hadn't had a copy of that. We brought ED 317, I believe it is, which is their administrative school rule. And we basically presented everything and said, okay, we'd like the school's input from the principals to get back as to where they want to fit. We want to double check, make sure they didn't want DARE and GREAT, and they still don't, because they do a STEP success program, and they're going to look at how they can incorporate the SRO into that program, which is their end. They asked for us to do a presentation to them on what we want to see law-wise, criminally-wise, and at what point, like search and seizure, that becomes a question as to when do they stop, when do we take over, and lay that out for them from our side of the fence. So they're working their side of the fence, we're working ours, and then we'll incorporate a new procedure once we get their input.
I guess my concern is that what we did before was never forwarded, so right now there's a bunch of blind school board members or whoever's sitting the new person sitting in that board.
It's Dr. Littlefield and the principals are who we were meeting with. The law hasn't changed, Commissioner, it's still the same law.
No, I understand, but was the paperwork that you didn't, or wasn't forwarded, Maura, was that going to the school board, or was it going to the principals?
Actually, the chief's request was both.
Both.
And anyone else we saw fit.
Okay, but I guess I'm disappointed at least the school board members didn't get it, because that's where, I guess that's where all this runs into lack of communication. You know, we ask somebody something and they say they never heard about it, and we think they've gotten it, and vice versa in some cases. I'm not debating that. And I think it's wrong on all aspects. There's a full board with one member. If Henry was there to make decisions, he can't make decisions without two more people at least being involved in it. I think going forward, maybe like I said, I don't remember what was in it, but maybe the principals shouldn't have gotten it, but I think there should have at least been a discussion brought back so that we could either readjust it or eliminate some of it. Could be for a good point. I don't remember at this point, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. But I think going forward with a little bit better communication on both sides, we might be all set.
Let me ask a question, because I'd like to move this thing on. Maura, where are we now? Are we at a stalemate because you and Dr. Littlefield didn't like the attachments? So does the chief call Dr. Littlefield, or Dr. Littlefield going to call the chief so we can get this process moving?
Well, it's not up to me to decide. I'm not on the board. My suggestion would be that the job description go forward, but all the other memos that were highly inappropriate be taken off.
Okay, so right now we're at a stalemate because of those attached memos. So how do we proceed now? Does he call Dr. Littlefield, or is Dr. Littlefield going to call the chief?
I'm not sure where to stalemate, because it depends on what their discussion yesterday. If they discussed that yesterday, then at least Dr. Littlefield
Did we discuss any of that?
I don't know what documents were provided in the past. I brought a copy of the school resource officer procedure that we use, which was that attached to that document?
Did we discuss the memo or whatever it was that we sent out? It had to be what, 4 or 5 months ago?
February.
Okay, longer than that. Was any of that discussed?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I was at the meeting. I don't know what you're talking about, this, my memo attached. I have a clue.
Well, I don't know. I'm not even talking about the memos attached. I'm talking about the paperwork we sent back in February with the original job description and where we wanted to start from. Was that discussed yesterday?
They were given the original job description yesterday.
We're given another one, but I guess, so that, all the work that was put into that one was just sent by the wayside. Something's wrong with this whole system.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
Since, I believe, Paul Cecilio, you attended the meeting yesterday with the superintendent,
Correct.
and you were with
Lieutenant Klein.
Lieutenant Klein. Is it not possible that you send a follow-up letter that you did meet with that job description? I mean, we're beating a dead horse here, you know. Let's go forward and, you know, have a follow-up letter that it was good that you had the meeting with the job description, and ask them who you wanted to be dispersed to. You want it to be dispersed to both the school board members, the building principals, and perhaps, I don't know if you want teachers and whatnot, who you want it dispersed to, and explain that to them in the letter. You're following up on your letter, and you're including, we're going to go forever if we're going to be fighting about the memo.
I don't think that's what we're fighting about. I think we're fighting about
that it got stopped.
Well, everybody wasting their time.
Right.
And that's, I guess I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I just would like us to at least learn something.
But I think we all want to go forward with this, and I think that they've made some good overtures as far as opening the discussion.
Commissioners, could I speak for a moment? The meeting that we had yesterday was set up by the chief for us to go and discuss these things.
Right.
I felt that it was a very productive meeting. It was some very good information was exchanged, the direction in which the new SRO program is going to go, and it was very productive. I think we need to move on.
Exactly.
We keep, as you've said yourself, beating a dead horse. Put this to rest and let's move on. There's a new SRO in place. Give that person the support that he needs to have and move on and be done with this issue. I think that we're going the right direction. We're going to have quarterly meetings with everyone, the chief, the superintendent, the principals and the vice principals, to make sure that we're not missing anything. This has all come out. Now, the thing is that these things go on, not at everybody's beck and call, that everyone's involved in the process. We report back to certain people. I report to the captain reports to the chief reports to you. But I think that the fact of the matter is this: the SRO program is still in place. We're going to improve the program. We're offering some educational things too now, some classes that we didn't offer before because we were too busy dealing with turmoil of other issues. So now we're trying to move forward and do the right thing by the community and by the kids. And I think that's the most important thing here. That's all I have to say.
But I have a comment, being new to this community, I think what I'm witnessing here is exactly kind of what I kind of looked at over the last 10 months, is that the problem with this idea of going forward and so forth is that you missed the point. I really do believe that Officer Defina has been persecuted to some degree. And the question is that if the failure of implementation of the SRO program 2 years ago meant that he was introduced into the SRO program in basically a system that failed, and the fact that it seems like every time when a conflict comes up where maybe he's trying to execute with precision, and not given the system in which to allow him to perform to precision, these people are being set up and then cut down and then sacrificed. I mean, if you really look at it, if you have a position in which you have to rewrite the mission statement every time someone goes into it, then you got a fundamental problem with the program, and it has nothing to do with the officers. It has to do with the system that is put in place. You look at it as it stands right now. It's and you guys can't make a decision based on it. And all you're saying is, well, if we turn the switch to 0 and start anew, we're going to get a different outcome. My belief is you're going to get the same outcome.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Lazat, your general comment is correct as far as the process. As far as the officer being treated unfairly, that's not true. The one thing that you don't know, and that the majority of people in this room here tonight don't know, are the personnel issues that were related to performance. Did not have anything to do with the details of the SRO program, or whether it was updated or not updated or whatever. Whether we all like it or not, state law does not allow us to make personnel issues public.
Certainly.
And therefore, I understand what you're saying, and you're correct, except that you're missing one very important component of your discussion and your statement, which is you do not know what the staff knows, positive and negative, about the officer's performance and what led to the decision to change. There's good reason for that. It's not necessarily because of the program and the rewrite.
No, and I understand that. That's absolutely true. You're right. The only thing I did bear witness to is disciplinary action for a Post-it note.
But you don't know the whole story.
No, I don't know.
All right, so I'm not gonna.
No, it's true. But the thing is that when you look at it, and you look from a managerial position, it just seems trivial in nature.
All right. If you only know this much of it, yes, but you to this day do not know the full story of that situation.
I'm not going to allow this to be bartered back and forth. It's not public input. All right.
I can see that.
Can I have a question? Just a direct question to the chief.
You're all public.
About me, so I'd like to ask one.
All right, I'll let you have that one.
Are you saying the switch came because of performance?
I'm not discussing personnel issues with you in a public session. We had a meeting last week about that. We talked about having a follow-up meeting. If you want to discuss personnel issues, or any employee wants to discuss personnel issues, those will be done in private and will not be done in a public session.
I don't want to discuss personnel issues. You just said that the reason for the switch was based on performance.
And that's personnel, and that won't be discussed, just as we said last week.
Well, you just said that. You didn't give me that excuse earlier.
All right, I'm moving
Why
on.
it's this way? You just made the comment, though. I'm just asking, is that what you're saying? That was a comment. I thought I just heard correctly that the change in SROs was because of performance. Is that correct?
Yeah, you have the paperwork that states that.
And you said we could review that with the commission.
Yeah, I told you that during the meeting.
All right, let's go.
Let's see. Things on the board here. Next issue was the police department website. Paul, you'd be interested, counsel, on this. One of the things that had come up at I think it was the last council meeting was the website, and talking about changing and changes that were coming to the website. One of the things that I don't think we discussed at that meeting or really came up, probably was really no need to, was we may or may not remember, at least Dave may remember, that as the town was working, Paul, you should remember, toward the website, one of the things was there wasn't a module for the police center. There was also the issue of what was going to be on the website for information and who was going to do the work. Was it going to be the town? Was it going to be somebody within our organization, or a combination? So that at the last council meeting, the website was discussed, the changes coming, and the day after at the management team meeting, which I think you know we have every day after with Carol, what that was discussed as far as the website, and we did receive from Evelyn that there is now, I guess, a link to that, so we will start working on that. So now the town apparently is ready to allow us to have a place or a template or whatever the correct terminology is. We will be able to start moving forward on that. So as a follow-up to your discussion of, although last meeting you didn't talk about individual departments and their access, for people that remember, the few of us remember, that was part of the issue of why the PD had not been a part of the town website in the past.
Is there anyone specifically from the police department that's working with Carol on it?
No.
Carol?
No, up till now it was Carol. When Carol came on, what was one of the issues of getting her up to speed was that the basics, whatever the building blocks were of the website, had to be done, and then then at some point there would be a module or an avenue, like whatever, for us.
Yeah, there's a basic generic package you have to put in place first.
Right.
Yeah,
So that's where she's at, and that has been done. So Dave may be the only commissioner that remembers that, but.
So we have a porthole in there?
I believe so. I just got this the other day, so we've got to look at it. We'll be working with the town. I've got to designate somebody. So we're just at the stages of it, but we're not at a dead stop where we had been for a number of years while the town was trying to figure out how to do it.
I think Carol's got a pretty good handle on it. So
yes, yeah. So we're just to let you know, we're at the beginning stages of that for the website. Let's see. Street name review process, I think, as the commission may remember, or at least Dave anyway, for a while now, the PD hasn't been involved in street name review issues because there was really no reason to, because the building department reviewed all street names for 911 compliance. At the last council meeting, the council, I believe, decided, or you weren't there, Paul, but decided that they wanted us to be involved. We'll do that, but again, I believe building's still going to do the 911 compliance, so.
That's the heart of the program, right there.
Right, so I guess, and I understand, and I'll review those, but I really still think it's an extra step that isn't needed. I mean, I understand what Councilor Pichetola was talking about, but the building department does that and has been doing it, and as far as I know, doing it okay for quite a while now. So if you want to involve us back in that process, we can, but we don't have the information available to make that determination, if you will, to that level, and you're adding another step back to a process that we had tried to streamline. So I guess I would ask Paul that at your next council meeting that
that question will come up again.
Bring that back up again.
Is it because 911's too slow getting back to them on the street name?
No, 911, the building department has the ability, however they do it, to compare the new names to existing names for any issue. What I understood from the last meeting, and I may be wrong, was that one of the councilors felt that we should be doing that. Maybe we should, but right now the situation in town is that the building department's been doing it for a number of years. I think even back when you were acting administrator.
Let me jump in here, though. The only reason I think I agree with that councilman is that A lot of times, we don't even find out about street names. We've discussed this before, Steve, that there's streets that are being named that you haven't even heard about yet. I think you might give us the opportunity.
But that is a separate issue, though.
Yeah, but I think this might be a first step in at least knowing there's 5 new streets being named. And within a reasonable amount of time, we should have the answers of why, what the street names are and where they are. I mean...
Well, we did have that at one point worked out where the building department did the check, and then as soon as the council voted it in, we were notified. So we thought, I believe with Paul, that we had that taken care of.
Yeah, I'm not sure specifically what transpired at the last meeting, but it sounds like they just requested the review by the police department.
Well,
basically.
right, and I think we may be taking a little bit of a step back. I understand the concern, but I think we had dealt with the concern a number of years ago. If we want to change, if you guys want to change the process because building is some issue now, but...
We have no problem with forwarding the addition of new streets to the commission.
Well, that has been, not to us, it's been an issue, because I know dispatch is not.
Right, but I think that was part of what we tried to resolve, though, was when building was doing it, because building through the planning process knew what name was going to work, and also knew the timing of when the council was going to make the decision on the name. Because prior to that, if we know the name beforehand and we get dispatched to a name, or if it's something these guys haven't approved, then the location doesn't exist.
Okay.
So I guess I would ask Paul just to clarify, if the council wants us to do that, fine, but just understand that the issue had been dealt with before, and we thought we came to a process that worked.
Okay, we'll do.
Joanne?
I guess the question that I have is, do we know why they need your input? If you're saying that it was something that the building department did and they did it automatically, was it that, something got lost in the transition?
I think that's what Paul's going to find out for us.
The one-time highway, building, and police all signed off on it.
Right, I thought so. I thought so.
But it was kind of a needless task to go that far, because once the highway has 911 approval or a building has 911 approval, that's it. I mean, that name is checked through.
From our point, we don't care what the name is as long as it doesn't conflict.
What I'm saying is you need to ask them why they need their input,
Good question, why we need...
Well, that's why I just asked you to clarify. If you want us to do it, we'll do it, but you remember why we had why that process was streamlined. Huh? Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, next up.
Next.
D appointments.
Yeah, commission appointment process. As I think everybody knows from the newspaper, the council changed or made an amendment to the police commission appointment process. That's effective as of July 8th. I think that's fine. My only comment had been to the commission, or to the council, is it's your policy. And that's what I believe I said in the paper. If you didn't think the policy was working or was outdated and needed to be tweaked, that's fine. So I'm glad that the council discussed it and came up with a policy that at least the current council feels comfortable with. Just to point out, though, is in the past, and that, as I pointed out at the meeting, is what steps that were followed, the commission was following a prior council decision. And Mike DiBattista was the chairman at that time, so that while make the change, that's not a problem. I think there were some council members that weren't maybe aware of the process and certainly didn't know the history and thought maybe the commission was doing something on their own, which I don't believe they were. They were following what was in writing. And if anybody has any questions, if it's okay, Mike, I would refer them to former chairman who was also the liaison to the PD that discussed it back when that process went into place. But tweaking it is fine, and go forward from there.
All right.
That's a question.
Go ahead.
I don't know how much input you had into this, Chief, if they consulted with you. So, and I'm probably going to need your help on this, Paul. But let me read you number 3. It says, upon receipt of record checks and signed background authorization, council directs police department to check its in-house records for any contacts with the candidates. Okay, I guess my question to you, Chief, is you might be privy, and obviously we're not privy, to an investigation by a federal agency for, let's say, whatever, drugs, arson, whatever, well, whatever the offense is an in-house record part of a contact to you by a federal agency, and could you reveal something like this to the council?
The first part of your question, no, that's not on our in-house record check. The second part is, I think I mentioned to the council at the meeting, Jim will remember if I did it or not, was that if there were issues like that, the council would have to discuss either with me or with somebody from the department, or request the input if you wanted it. Was there anything else out there floating? The whole idea is for the council to have the best information possible to make the best decision they can. It's up to them how they want to do it.
But no, it doesn't say that here. So I guess what I'm saying is, you could be privy to something, and then all of a sudden, after they appoint this individual, all hell breaks loose, and the guy is indicted on a federal offense or something, and they're going to look pretty stupid.
We discussed that possibility, and I think, and it's up to the council, I think, to decide the next time with the current change you have when you get to that step, if you're going to, I mean, there were different councils had different ideas of how to deal with that issue that you're talking about. I'm not sure that maybe you finally got to a final way of handling that.
No, it didn't. That's a fairly complex issue.
Right, so I think that's still kind of a...
Because you can have things pending that
Exactly.
you can't even address, you know what I mean? You would legally be able to address them publicly.
Right, we couldn't address the
So
public.
therefore...
My understanding was, at least my understanding regarding that item, was that when it got to that point, if I had any questions, I, as a counselor, could contact the chief, or the council as a whole can contact the chief and ask the questions. Then it's incumbent upon him to either tell us, I don't have anything, or I can't tell you. And it's up to us at that point in time to kind of read between the lines, is there a hidden message there, or whatever, and just take it upon ourselves to say, hey, we've got to either go forward, or we don't want this guy on the list.
Tough call.
It's a tough call, no matter how you look at it.
But it is the council's call as far as how you want to, the level of screening and
I think it'll have to be addressed.
it's going to be a case by case, but it is up to the council to ultimately decide that.
All right.
Just a question for Mr. Loisel. It was my understanding that even though that policy was adopted, that it was going to come back to your board, for your board to look at it, to make sure that people were satisfied. Am I correct with that?
Which policy are you speaking about?
The policy that we just discussed.
Yeah.
That it was going to come back to the board.
That'll be reviewed again.
Yeah, because I think there were,
Still
just
some-
as some of the things that were discussed here,
Yes.
I think there were some things that people were not quite sure about, and I think there was some hesitancy from some members, say, yeah, go forward with this, but bring it back so that we can look at it and perhaps have another discussion.
I think it'll be rewritten eventually.
Oh, with my understanding, reading this, that it was amended July 8th, and this was it? This was the final document?
Okay, that's, yes.
Yes,
that's-
it was, but they were going to bring it back again to make sure that people were all right with it.
All right.
If I may, basically the feeling amongst the council members was that, okay, here's what we'd like. We can live with this, but it's still, we're willing to listen to the commission, to the chief, to the officers, to the citizens. If they want to, if they'd like to see something modified, bring it to us. But it's got to come back to the council to be modified. That was my understanding of it. I mean, it's a document that can be changed at any time by following the procedures. So if you guys see something there that you don't like or that you can't live with, let us know, and we'll take it under advisement, and if you can convince us, then we'll change it. If you can't convince us, then I guess they'll just stand there and throw their tails up in the air and say, no.
All right. Moving on to new business.
New business is, I think everybody's probably already read the paper. The council is looking at the steps that it would take to add 2 more members to the police commission. It would require legislative action. There are pros and cons about doing that. I remember reading some stuff I have somewhere in the archives when Chief Oliver was talked to by the Charter Review or Charter Commission when the charter was being put into place as far as the validity of the commission itself and then the membership of it and all that. And that was also some pros and cons, so there's some pros and cons there. All I'm going to do is send a letter myself to the different, to our reps and ask to meet with them to answer any questions they may have on how it works now. I can dig out that documentation of when the charter was being put in place, what was discussed with the chief back then as far as the pros and cons of the idea, and then the commission can or cannot individually or collectively talk to the reps if you feel you want to. It's up to you totally. I'm waiting for the letter from Carol, which she's going to get to me, of the actual letter going from the council to the reps. So I'm waiting to get that. So we'll look at that and we'll all work through that and try to do whatever's best for the community.
Isn't it 2 prongs though? Isn't it the legislature and legislative, and then after that you have to get the vote of the community besides?
If it's written that way.
Right,
yes. But that's how it was originally to put in, but I believe that's not what the motion was, though. I believe the motion was, if I remember reading the minutes right, I think, Jim, you might have said it, was that it would not have a vote of the citizens to add the 2 more.
No, it wasn't I that said that.
Okay. I thought I read that in there.
I felt that seeing as how that the commission was formed and created by a legislative act rather than an RSA, that in order to increase the size of the commission, it would have to follow the same route, which would mean, number 1, get it proposed by the legislature, give it to the townspeople. My question at the time was, what can we do, if this is the course that's going to be taken, what can we do to make sure we don't have to have a special election to do it?
Right, okay, I'm sorry.
To hold it in conjunction with our regular town meeting.
Okay.
Therefore, if there's any priority to be placed on it, do it now, instead of waiting until October and finding out, look, we got to wait another year.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me. I know there was an issue that you talked about as far as
the timing's pretty good.
Right.
That's where I was coming from.
Okay, no, I understand. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that was 2 questions I had. Thank you.
Steve, moving on.
CIP workshop on June 30th. The planning board, town council, budget committee members, CIP committee meeting, committee and department heads had a CIP workshop, roundtable. Talked about the CIP process, how the processes came about, changes, things that could be done for the future. I think you've got everybody, especially the newer people that hadn't been there when the CIP process came online, up to speed on the process itself, how it works, how it's been working, what changes could be made. So I think out of that meeting should come at least a better understanding of all parties of how the CIP process works as we go into this budget year. Whether there be any changes or not, I don't know, but I think it was a good discussion for people that had no idea how the process had come about and the limits of the process, what items were considered CIP and were not, were to have that. So I'm hoping that that's going to help us all in the budget process this year for the membership to know a little bit better how the process works, how it's supposed to work. So we spend more time discussing the issues and less time discussing the process that's already been in place. But we have a little time to discuss all those issues.
I'd just like to follow up. I think the important piece out of that workshop that was done is the piece to make sure with regard to the CIP that it's married to the master plan.
Correct.
I think there were a lot of people that were on that CIP committee that had that as a concern.
Statutory requirement. That it be coordinated with the master plan.
I think that a lot of new people weren't aware of how the CIP came about, the statutory requirements.
Some people didn't even know we had a master plan.
How the department heads were asked to prepare a CIP proposal. I think it worked out well. Next item, I think it was the last council meeting, we talked about the budget process. the council opened the meeting up. There was actually it was town council orientation. It's kind of the same thing I want to talk about. At the last meeting, the town council had an orientation to the administrator, and the council received a lot of information, which was to help them. And I think that was very good because I think, again, it gets everybody on the same page, and especially for newer members understanding. Also, there was an item that was discussed at that meeting was it was opened up to the department heads as far as the budget process. Good points, bad points, changes that could be made. Some of the department heads spoke as far as items that, ideas. It's obviously not up to us. We will do whatever process the town wants. But I think, again, it was important that we all talked about the fact that we need to spend less time, we need to have a process in place and spend more time talking about the numbers of the request than the process, and the process seemingly to change every year. So I don't know how the process will change this year, if at all. But I think if some of the changes are looked at least especially the budget committee and the council, I think it'll make it easier for those two boards to understand the information that the department heads, all of us, are tasked to present to you. We have a very short period of time to do that. We have a lot of information. You have a short period of time window to deal with all this. And we want to get you the information and answer your questions. So whatever works best for those boards. So I think that was a good part of the discussion with the department heads. Let's see, the last item I had for public input, or public session, I'm sorry, was on Town Employee Appreciation Day. Remember when that was, Paul?
No, I understand it's in September.
September 18th, I'm sorry. On September 18th, the town will hold the Town Employee Appreciation Day, like it did last year. So as more information comes out about that, we'll get that out to everybody, and as we did last year. And that's all I had for the public session.
Any more public input?
David Pearl, 79 Main Street. I'd like to go back and revisit the letter that you wrote dated June 2nd concerning Mr. LaRouge's application, and ask you how that was generated when his application was filed on May 27th.
Again, I'm going to tell you that I don't remember at this time. Same as I did before. Henry, do you have anything?
I don't remember.
Well, I'll tell you, as a citizen and you being a police commissioner, I'm very disappointed that you can't recall something that's as important as that, because it leads me to believe that you conducted a meeting outside of this room. I don't see any other answer. Do you have one to offer?
There was no meeting conducted outside this room.
His application was filed on the 27th. You had no meeting scheduled. You had no meeting posted. Did you anticipate his application?
Anything else?
Yes. It's my understanding that over the last 10 years, we've had 94 internal investigations in this police department. If you check Manchester's website for their police department, over that same 10-year period, they dealt with between 200 and 220 officers. They had 64 investigations. I think this leads us to believe that there is definitely a problem in the Hooksett Police Department. The chief has been the constant through that 10 years. I think that we are having frivolous investigations which are causing professional and personal problems for people in this department. And the chief is the only one that seems to avoid this and will not accept a complaint upon himself. But the taxpayers are putting up the burden of this in a legal line, which I think is going to hit $150,000 this year, Chief?
Probably 152.
152. I think that breaks down to about $3,500 per police officer that we're spending to investigate our own. I asked this commission to audit, to get an outside body to come in here and audit what is going on. As a citizen, I think there is a mountain of evidence. If this were a business, it would have been done a long time ago because the shareholders would have demanded it, or they would have pulled their stock out We can't pull our stock out. We live here in Hooksett, but we want answers. I don't want, it's a personnel issue. We just lost our SRO officer, who was an award-winning, excellent SRO officer, and all we're given is personnel issues. I find that unacceptable as a citizen of Hooksett, and I ask you, as the police commission, to take action. Thank you.
Whoa. How can you say that you find that unacceptable if that's the answer? So you don't like the answer, that it's a personnel issue?
No, because I don't think it's well-founded. When I see 94 investigations, I think our officers are being investigated for trivial matters. And to answer your question, Chief, we heard the Post-it note. We heard that at an open hearing.
You might do a little bit more investigation. I was told a few months, 2 or 3 months ago by a state police commander that they do an average of 80 a year. So if you figure...
We only have 20.
Right, so so again, if you're talking 90-something over 10 years, and they're talking 80 per year, and they've got 300 and whatever, I don't know if somebody knows offhand what they have for people, I don't think that's out of the ballpark. But bottom line is, we have a nationally accredited policy that is in there, and we follow it. And it is a personnel policy. They are personnel, and that's the law, and we don't write the law. So that's the answer you're going to get.
I think that you have lost leadership of this department. And I think that is the problem. And I think you're using the citizens' taxpayers' dollars for legal expenses to investigate these officers, and we're losing good officers on a monthly basis.
Well, if you feel that way, ask those that you feel are being unjustly accused to open up their personnel file. Have them sign it off that their personnel file can be open.
It's not my job.
You are right.
It's not my job to look into...
Well, no, wait a minute. You're the one who's doing the one-sided complaining. Now, there was an investigation done 5 years ago, but nobody liked the answers to that one.
Nobody knows the answers to that one, sir.
Well, again,
well, I don't know what
it's a personnel issue.
The chief said he was clear. He does not want to open that file. I'm asking you as the commission to look into the problem. I'm not a police commissioner. I'm a citizen. I'm asking you to look into it. I think we need a third-party investigation of this police department. It's been asked for many times. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes. Good evening, Cameron Cahill. For a point of clarification, I was sitting there and wanted to raise my hand to create some input during those discussions. The budget committee, the chief was mentioning about the budget committee, the conversation about the town council, and I was there as well. And Chairman Gahara had asked me at the meeting to speak to John Peroni about it. Now, I haven't spoken to John Peroni about it yet, but the general consensus, based on what John Peroni's always taught me, was that the budget committee is not responsible to dictate process. All the presentations come to the budget committee. So I should have responded to Mr. Gahara at that time, where it's really not up to the budget committee to decide what this process is going to be this year. The rest of the other department heads and council should decide how to proceed it, and then bring whatever they have to the budget committee. I just wanted to clarify that. Secondly, I guess to echo or respond to Mr. Pearl's statement, I guess the citizens are not agree that it's not necessarily personnel issues that the citizens want to know about and to hide against or whatever. The citizens are concerned about the management standpoint of the department as it relates to personnel issues, where it's as I've said before, it's a reflection of how the management is run in the Department of Command and Control here as it relates to personnel issues. Management, command and control, those are the concerns of the citizens, not as it's personally addressed with personnel issues. So to respond as personnel issues when we have a question, we're really trying to direct it towards the management aspect of how these personnel issues are directed. You had also just mentioned that the department is fully accredited. As far as I know.
I didn't say that.
Okay, I want to correct it.
I did not say that the department
So what was that?
Policy was correct.
The policy was corrected. So having said that, I guess you brought up the word accredited. I'm wondering if this commission or the police department would be willing to entertain the notion of having some fully accredited program here to run this department fully based on the normal notions of a accreditation process to go forward and how this department is run. Secondly, the other notion about, or thirdly, the other notion about the letter that Mr. Pro was mentioning, I guess, was what my concern was that in the previous meeting in June here, it was noted, and the chief admitted that he stamped the letters confidential. So I'm wondering was he present at that meeting, the non-public meeting on May 19th, in order to stamp that letter confidential? And if that's the case, if he was present during that meeting, he should have recused himself from that meeting, because he's obviously talking to the commissioners regarding candidates to be replaced on that commission, and that seems to be a violation in my mind. So I would ask, what stated statutory justification did the police commission have to discuss non-personnel issues regarding Hooksett citizens in a non-public session, and why was the police chief there already admitting stamping confidential that letter? By stamping confidential on that letter, as he admitted already, that would seem to implicate the police chief into matters that are a conflict of interest with his position and a violation of the statute that governs the department separation of this department and commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oops. Maura Willett, 3 Summerfair Street. At the last meeting, I had asked a question about a meeting that had been posted for April 4th, and there was no documentation to date for that meeting. You said you were going to look into it.
The meeting was posted in error. There was a meeting with council. It should not have been posted as a non-public. I guess it shouldn't have been posted at all because it's a non-meeting. I didn't realize that the meeting was posted. It was just Mary Ann and myself, I guess.
So the commission did meet with legal counsel, which is a non-meeting, does not have to be posted, but it was posted as a meeting in error. So that's why they're meeting. So that's why there's no minutes, because
it was a mistake. And I don't realize I don't believe we even knew till the meeting day that it was posted.
Right.
And that's when we realized that it shouldn't have even been posted. It wasn't a non-public meeting, it was meeting with the attorney.
Thank you.
Thank
Just a question with regard to that. Where are the postings? Posting in this building?
No, town hall, this building.
Oh, I saw that one.
And on the town website.
And on the town
I
website.
don't know if they post this in town hall also, but email it to Evelyn.
Oh, okay.
And ask her to post it appropriately.
I think we should have an answer to that, because I think it should be posted at town hall too.
I thought it was
Not
two
everybody
public
does email.
places that it stated.
It used to be at the old town hall, I'm not sure what.
Probably is, yeah.
Send it to them. Yeah, we send it to them, so I believe that you posted that. We send it to them.
Well, if you send it to them, yeah. The other thing, and I don't, say that you have to follow anything that any other group or that does it in town, but I'm of the practice that we always asked whether or not it was posted to make sure, or you had a copy of the posting just to be sure, so that you could see exactly. So supposing you have listed on there non-public session or whatever, that you're able to see it. So just a suggestion.
Yeah, you should write where it was posted.
Yeah.
I believe council used to do that. You still do that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
You want it on the actual
post
notice?
it?
No, I'm actually here when you have the non-public, and we should give the sites and date it was posted.
Post it on the webpage.
Posted at town hall, police department, at...
Or, the other thing that you can do is before you open the meeting, you can ask the clerk whether or not they were posted, and if she says it was duly posted, you can acknowledge that.
Okay. It's on the town website.
It's on the website.
Right, but I think if it was just blotted down there, would answer all the questions, and anybody would know where it was, or what it was for, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I know years ago the council used to do it. I don't know if they still do. All right, anything else?
No, that was it with regard to that. That brought it to mind. Thank you.
Jade Pena, 1465 Coastal Road, and 1369. There was talk tonight of the memos given from the chief at the meeting with the police commissioner, Roy, and the school board, and the school superintendent. Since it's been brought up in public, was wondering if the commission would agree to review the packet that the chief gave to the school board. The one that was said to give it to the principals, the school board, and anybody they feel they deem necessary. I wonder if they would review that. Because there was, some allegations of inappropriate, highly inappropriate material that was passed along with that. You mentioned that if there was, nobody brought it forward. Since it's brought up in public now, I'd like to bring that forward to the commission.
I find it interesting that you know about it and the school board did it, but Henry should have that. You were part of that meeting.
I thought you were just talking about the one that just happened.
No.
No, this is the one.
We're going back to February again, if I'm correct.
Well, I guess the word that they're giving is they can give it to whoever they feel.
That's what was said, I believe that.
And the superintendent and the head of school board decided that it wasn't appropriate to give out, but, it was a shock to read, I'd say a shock to the average person to read what was in there, as far as the memos go. And since it was supposed to be to better the SRO program, I didn't find it, I just don't know why they'd be in there. I can't see the reasoning behind it. So I was wondering if you guys would, if the commission would agree to review that packet. If you, I didn't even ask her if you want to, if you sit in, since you were there, I'll sit in, I'll give you my copy of the packet or her copy of the packet, and you can all go over why certain things were in there, address it.
I want the original packet also.
Yeah. Well, there were different packets, one was given to them, and then I guess there was a separate packet that was given out.
You keep everything, you still have your first dollar.
I'll have to look, but you have that, Brendan? I'll look through my material, but it would be at home.
It's not going to be tonight.
No,
I can
not
guarantee you
tonight.
that. But
if the packet, I'll see if Dr. Littlefield can grab this packet, I'll grab mine.
I'm sure I have it because I keep it.
We could sit down and go through it so you can see just what was written, and maybe you could try to deduct what purpose that would have.
Are you filing a complaint? Because you should go through the complaint process, and if you're concerned about...
No, I'm just asking as a citizen. I'm just asking you as a citizen, since it was brought to my attention that this was given out. I mean, if you need me to ask as an officer, I'm asking somebody to review this. Should I?
I'll dig it out.
File it?
I'll dig it out. I'm not sure I got it.
And before my time runs out, so is that, we'll see. Is that?
But he's going to dig it out, and I don't,
I'll get back to it.
Yeah, you get back. I tell you what I'll do. Henry will look through it, and I'm going to let Henry decide, seeing we can't really discuss it because it becomes a meeting.
If you want.
That's one of the downfalls of 3 people. 2 people become a meeting if they discuss something. If Henry decides that we should review it as a group, you put it on next month's agenda. Is that fair? I'm putting it in Henry's hands at this point.
So if he feels that it should be reviewed, then we can all, I don't care if it's public or not public.
Well, when will we all decide together?
Yeah,
Maybe you'd have to call another meeting to do it.
I'm not saying it has to be done immediately. If you want to bring it to next meeting, and you can all go into non-public and read through it and decide, okay, this is something we'd like to discuss about, Jay.
Yeah, I would prefer going that way.
Okay.
The other thing, this is the first time I'm learning as far as the appointment of the new SRO, why, and it was for performance, from what I heard said in public tonight. I guess I got to go through the official steps of the chief to have the commission review my performance appraisal. And we've talked that a little bit. I'm finding now that since there's steps in place with the SRO program and all that stuff because of my performance, reviewing it with the commission.
It's not the place, Jason, you know that. You have to go through the chief.
Well, it was brought up that it was based on my performance, so I want to just address that. This is the first I'm learning that it was based on performance.
It's the first we've heard of it too, so, I mean, I still say it's not.
I guess request it through the chief to sit down with the commission and review my performance appraisal, since there's things in motion now based on that.
And it would not be in public,
Okay.
just like any other personnel issue.
So we would review it in non-public together.
Correct. If I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Right, so you make the request that you wish the commission to review your personnel file. You put that in writing, they then decide whether they...
No, I mean review my performance appraisal.
Evaluation.
Yeah, the evaluation, since it seems, I think that's what I understood tonight, the SRO appointment was based on my performance, which would be my performance that I would
that's how you would do it. You would write a letter to me saying you want to meet with the commission, and then we would schedule that.
Okay, can I schedule that to be public?
No.
Not a personnel issue, you know that.
My grievances with public, those.
This is not a grievance.
All right, I'll take that step first then. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right.
I'd like to say something before we adjourn.
Okay. We're not going to be adjourning, but that's okay.
Well, before non-public. Laura, and I haven't seen anything in the Union Leader about where Hooksett was voted number 66 in one
Well, they
match.
had an article on the front page, and Hooksett was left off. That I didn't write it, but it was several weeks ago. Hooksett was left off the list, but they ran a correction the next day saying that it was on the list. So
That small blurb.
it was written when I was out of town when it was written.
See?
But I'd also like, so there was a correction, I was sorry.
There were, it's
usually in the back page.
Yeah, I know, but they're a little correct.
I was out of town, and when I got back in town, I read about it, and I suggested writing an article about it, and they said there was an article written about it, because it was left off the list, they ran a correction. That's all I know about it. I never even saw it.
Well, safety is one of the criterion, which means a good fire and police department.
All right. Good. Making a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91-A. Semicolon.